have you ever seen a field that all of a sudden turns into being under construction with water, sewer, and streets, everything going in, and then all of a sudden houses going up? Well, that's what this video is about. How you convert dirt through construction all the way to finished residential lots. Okay, so here is a quick shot of the land that we're gonna be going over. Choosing the land is a whole nother video. This is really just gonna be about turning the dirt through construction to finished lots. So this piece of land first was 3 10-acre tracts. So what we have to do on this one is kind of combine it all together to one track and then split it all up, in this particular case, into half-acre lots. So as you see on here, here's the before, here's the construction while it's under construction, and here's our finished lots at the end. Okay, so we have our 10 acres, now we have a 30-acre tract. In this particular case, I wanted to go to market with half-acre lots. I think it'll be really competitive over here to have these beautiful half-acre lots when most of the other houses around there are a little bit more higher density. So what you want to do is first go to your engineer and get an idea of how many lots this particular property is going to yield. Of course, if we built smaller lots, it would yield a lot more. On bigger lots, we're going to charge a premium for these lots. There's only going to be 43 of them. So we go in with a copy of the plat of the original 10 acres, 10, 10, and 10, talk to our engineer and get them to lay out a basic idea of the way the streets are going to go. So that way we know how many lots this particular piece of land will yield. This is what you kind of call a flagpole lot because it's got a long, skinny little road to get into it, but it's also very efficient. The yield on this lot was great because as you have these roads going through, I could get lots on either side of the road. Sometimes when it comes to cul-de-sacs or a road that just runs on the side of the property, that's a little less efficient. They went over there and drew each one out the way it is. So this particular piece of property, with having half-acre lots, yielded 43 lots. So if it was half-acre lots, it should be 60 lots. But when you deduct all the space that's taken out for the streets, for in this particular case, some of the easements, some of the drainage, then the 30 acres actually only yielded 43 half-acre lots instead of the 60. So be sure you keep in mind the amount of land that you're buying isn't going to directly yield the amount of lots. You have to deduct the space for the streets, easements, and the drainage. After we know how many lots it's going to yield, we also have a basic idea of the linear feet of water we're going to have to put in, the linear feet of curb, the square feet of asphalt, some of the drainage improvements that we're going to have to do in order to properly work and meet all of the city and or county requirements that they're going to have you build into your plans to make sure the property works. You then create a basic budget with this. As you can see on this budget, we have our land. On this particular one, we paid cash for the land, but we're going to be financing the construction. But some things you don't think about, on this particular property, we had to remove a bunch of electric poles. We have to add street lights. We had 3 wells that we had to plug to get off of there. We have our monument, the engineering, the survey, the geotech, the park fees, the detention and pervious cover fees, mailboxes, management, the traffic impact analysis. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the whole bundle of the budget that you really got to be aware of, or reach out to us or somebody who's done it before, where you can get a whole qualified budget over here. So when we have our total cost, we have our total sales price, we can see what the profit of the whole project is going to be. Very important piece of it, this is not an actual. But before we go out and buy this land, or before you go out and buy this land, you definitely want to have an idea of this. Just going to buy the land and hoping that it's all going to work out, recipe for disaster. So go through, see what your costs are going to be, see how many lots it's going to yield, see what you could afford to buy those lots for to make sure all the pieces of the puzzle match up so you have a successful project. In order to get your actual, you need to go back to your engineers, who probably are the ones that drew your lot layout, and they're going to design all the construction plans. In the construction plans for this project, we had to import a ton of dirt. This was a soccer field when we bought it. So we had to bring in about $500,000 worth of dirt, believe it or not, 5 feet, so the water would shed from the front all the way to the back. In order to do that, we got to get the engineers to draw the plans. So right here are the specific plans of exactly the way the water lines are going to go in. This particular one, we had to put a big 12-inch water line in because the city assumes that other people around us are going to be developing, so we had to install a water line big enough for other people to tap into. If you look at the actual plat also, we had to stub out some other streets for other people to tie in. Extra expense for us, extra work for us, but that's sometimes what the city's gonna require, so that way the next guy that comes along, it's easier for them to develop. As your engineers go through here, you're gonna hire them, they're gonna meet with the city, they're gonna meet with the county, of course you wanna go too, and check out what everything's going on. And they're gonna draw the plans for your site, for your drainage, for your road, for your asphalt, for everything, the way that's gonna go. Also, exactly the way all the water lines are gonna go. So that way, your estimate of what your actual lot layout is now finalized, engineered plans of exactly what you're gonna build. So now we have, like we said, we have our final plans, we have our final budgets. Now these budgets are only inclusive of the actual horizontal construction over there. When it comes to your monuments, when it comes to your landscaping, when it comes to some of your surveying, your geotech, and a lot of that stuff, a lot of that is not built in here. So while you're getting your bids squared away for your utilities and your site work, you want to go over there and fine tune your original estimate, because now we want to get to where our estimate that we went through earlier is very close to what our actual costs are. The majority of that cost is going to come from your utility contractors and your site work contractors, which is one of the biggest items on there. So now we've taken that to go on to the next step in this particular situation. Since we paid cash for the land, we're gonna go finance the construction of the lots. When going to look for some financing, if you're gonna finance some of the construction, you might wanna reach out to some of the other banks that have financed projects similar to this in similar locations and reach out to them. They're gonna be a lot more comfortable knowing what the other projects that they've gone through, the hoops they had to jump through in order to make it happen. Some of the things that come up with the city, some of the things that come up with the county, some of the things that come up with the roads, and so on and so on. And then the bank's gonna go ahead and order an appraisal. Appraiser goes out there, appraises the lots. They make sure that your equity position in there is where it needs to be for what they're gonna finance. Get things going. Ready to go, close on the lot, now it's time for construction. A lot of times, almost every time in your construction, there's a mobilization fee. So your utility contractor is hauling, you've seen the bulldozers, all the grading machines, all the massive amount of machines that are over there, and they're pushing dirt, they're preparing the site to get in there and then start putting your utilities. But the plans that you see here as you're building it, there is a 12-inch water line that runs all the way around over here. There's short runs that go onto the lots where the line is, and there's long runs that go across the street to the other lots. After all this is done, you have your CPS and your electric come in. So they came in after we put in all of our water lines. First we graded all the streets, put in all of our water lines. These particular ones, since they're half-acre lots, they have septic tanks in here. So the cool thing about this is we did not have to run a sewer line, which is great. Big lots put septics, little lots, of course you have to have a sewer line. So construction time, as the phases of construction go with your draws, while we're talking about financing, as the grading gets done, you get a draw from the bank and you pay him for the grading. As he goes in and does the water, you get a draw from the bank, pay him for the water, and for the streets and the curbs and the concrete and so on, until as each phase goes, just like when you finance a house, the phases of the house, you kind of get a draw and pay it as you go. And now it's final approval time. Part of the process through each phase of this is the county's gonna come inspect, your engineer's gonna come inspect, you gotta hire a third party to come inspect. You wanna make sure each part of the construction is going in right. But now, through the course of construction, now we've gotten everything squared away, so now it's time to review our finished lots, check out our finished lots, and we've actually started building some new homes on some of our lots out here as well. Okay, so here we are at the beautiful Alamo Estate subdivision. 43 half-acre lots. Remember, it started off as 30 raw acres, just raw land like it was next door. But from taking it from dirt through construction, putting our water, putting our electric, putting all of our site work, putting our streets, our curbs and everything in here, now it's time to take a tour of this beautiful development. Whenever you're developing land, one thing you really got to think about is drainage. Believe it or not, we are about 5 feet taller than this land originally was. We had to bring in a ton of dirt over here, more than a ton, tons and tons of dirt to raise this up so the water goes that way. Another thing that we had to do was build this giant drainage ditch in here, which is huge expense also. The engineers actually, when they went through the city, are trying to deal with the water that comes from the commercial piece of property that's in the front. So if this were going to be built as a car lot or hotel with tons of impervious cover, there might be a lot of water that would wash into our houses. So part of what the city did whenever they went back through it is make us put this big drainage channel all the way through here to send water over here towards the neighbor's property into a little culvert kind of area that goes down and eventually makes it to the creek. So here we are to talk about the electric. Remember, the electric, you've already kind of preliminary bid out in your original budget. Part of the service is running the line. So there's a line going for the electric all the way around, your street lights, and also if you look going down here, they got to put transformers that service each one of the lots, and the lines kind of run straight along like that, stub into each house. Okay, when it comes to plumbing, this one had a huge water line running right in front of it, so it was easy to tie into. Sometimes you might look at a piece of property that is less expensive, but your off-site water is so far away to get water to your site, it actually would make more sense to buy a different property that has water lines closer. Over here are 2 meters, and if you notice, they're right on the side of the lot. So the lot line splits right in the middle. This is called a short run. So a short run is when the main water line's on the same line, and you pop the 2 meters right here. Running across the street will be your long run. The plumber comes in and runs the water lines for the lines right over here, which is to service this side of the street. So there's really normally only one main line going around, and then it goes across to get to the other ones. Okay, one of the coolest parts about building a subdivision is naming the streets. So this one we have Mr. Robert Evans and Mr. Samuel Blair. This subdivision is called Alamo Estates, so we thought it would be kind of cool to name it after people that were actually at the Alamo. So that's where these names come from. Another thing to notice while we're looking at it is the grading of the street. It shows how all the grading ends up coming right back to this, not all the grading, but most of the grading for the subdivision ends up coming right back here, down the curbs, through this ditch, down the little water drainage easement, into a far off creek that goes into a bigger creek. It's pretty interesting to see all the things that happen inside of developing a subdivision. Once you have the land, remember getting your preliminary lot layout, right? Then going in and making your preliminary budget to see what you think it's gonna cost. Then actually hiring the engineers and doing the plans, get the plans specific, so that way you can take it to your contractors who are gonna put in your water, sewer, streets, and all that stuff, right? Then going through the financing process to get it financed. Then going through the construction process and actually building it. Till then when you get to where you are here with finished lots, everything approved, all city inspected, ready to go, and ready to build some beautiful houses on it. So if you are interested in developing, maybe you might already own some land, maybe you're looking for land, maybe you own some land but don't want to develop yourself, may want to partner with us to develop it, please give us a call. Going through the numbers and all the ins and outs is very easy. We can put something together really quickly. On the other side too, custom home building is also our business. So if you're interested in looking at some of these lots, some of the other lots we've developed, or some of the other houses that we built, or designing a custom home, please reach out so we can get you some more information. Thank you.